Hello, Steve Cook here again. Today I want to show you something extra with rosegarden in addition to what I showed you last time. Last time in rosegarden I showed how it's possible to link rosegarden up to VMPK and then VMPK up to QSynth, and also bring in an external keyboard from outside to VMPK, so that you can actually play a MIDI tune in rosegarden and it shows which keys are being depressed in what order as the MIDI tune progresses, such that you can play along with that. And as long as you copy in terms of which keys you're depressing the real keyboard out here, as long as you press the right keys in the right order at the right time, it plays in tune and you can tell straight away. It's a way of learning a tune without reading music. Well, sometimes I want to play a tune that involves two instruments. I have two keyboards, two external keyboards. Now these keyboards are only 5 octaves each, which means that they're not a full-size keyboard. A full-size keyboard is about 7 octaves, 88 keys as opposed to 61. For most instruments, that's enough. However, sometimes, occasionally, I might want to play a piano piece that needs to span both keyboards in order to take up a full 88 standard keyboard. So what I've done is, if you remember the old electric organs, they would often have two keyboards where they'd have an overlap of about 2 octaves, and each keyboard would be about 5 octaves, so they'd be like, they'd have an overlap of 2 octaves. So what you do is you'd get 6 here and 6 here, or maybe 1 octave. And the reason for doing that is so that you could play from one keyboard down to the other. But the other advantage of having those two keyboards is you could set different voices on each keyboard. One would be violins, one would be whatever. Now, with those electric keyboards, if any of you have played them, you'd know that the word voices is a bit of a euphemism, because they all sounded the same, really. They had slight variations. Now, with a synthesizer on a modern computer, different voices really are different voices. In fact, these are not synthesized sounds, or at least they are by the time they come through the synthesizer, but they're taken from real world samples, so they sound very realistic. And so there's a piece I'm trying to learn at the moment called Green Sleeves to a Ground, which involves a flute melody and a cello bass line. What I was wanting to do, was to get rosegarden. It's 2 tracks in the MIDI, there's 2 tracks. I want one track to go out to one VMPK, virtual keyboard, which is the cello track, and the other track to go out to another VMPK, which is the flute melody track. And then I can then connect 2 keyboards each in turn to these 2 VMPKs, so that when I play the 2 keyboards, I'm just getting my hands in front of the camera, so when I play the 2 keyboards, I'm playing the flute on one and the cello on the other. That was quite difficult to work out. I might be the only person in the world who wants to do this, who feels the need to do this. But since I figured it out, and since it was such a pain to figure out, I thought I might as well share it. If there's anybody out there who might ever want to make use of this, then it's done. So I'm putting it on YouTube, and since I'm putting it on YouTube, I might as well make it available here. Okay, that's enough rattling on about that. I'm now going to go through it, so I'll minimise me down. I can get my key. Be cursor in the right place. Right, there we go. Alright, put that down there. Right, first thing I need to open is audio processors, QJack CTL, just like last time. In fact, I'll minimise me out of the way straight off now, because I'm going to get in the way. So, QJack CTL. Start that, connect it, and again, like last time, I'll ignore the connections. I'll disconnect them all once I've got everything open. So next thing I want is sound generators, QSynth. There we go. And the next thing is I want 2 VMPKs open. So VMPK, there's the first one, and I've already set that to 5 octaves. Just in case you wanted to know how to do that, you'd go there, you set the octaves there, but they're set. So 5 octaves, another VMPK, there we go, leave them there like that. Finally I need rosegarden open, and I'm going to import a MIDI, and I'll import that green sleeve store ground because I really like that tune. Import MIDI file. There we go. And there we are. There's the flute track. There's the cello track. Right. So the first thing I need to do before I do anything else is to disconnect all of these connections, which QJack CTL tries to make intelligently, but they're not as intelligent as it thinks they are. So that's them done. Right. So next thing. This is where it differs from last time, and this is quite complicated. So that's why I'm committing it to video, because it means that if you do decide to have a go at this, you can just keep scrolling back through the video to see how I did it. So the first thing I need to go to is the MIDI playback devices. Now, Rosegarden includes one by default, which it gives a generic name, General MIDI Device. But you can have as many as you want. Now, I've got 2 VMPKs, so I need 2 MIDI playback devices. So click New. So now I've got them here. Now, here it tells you where it sends its data through, and at the moment there's nothing there. So if I click one of these, I'll click my first VMPK, which is here. I'll click the second one and click the second VMPK. And where I was struggling on this for weeks is I couldn't understand why. When I did all of the right things, it still, and you'll find out later, it still wouldn't allow me, it wouldn't display them in a later dialog box where I need to be able to see them to allocate them to the various VMPKs. And the reason is, and it's really this simple, you've got to give them a name. You've got to give them a unique name. If you don't, it won't work. So it just took me ages to figure that out. I mean, it's such an obvious, oops, hello, I need to be different. It's such an obvious thing, and yet it absolutely won't work without them. Right, so I've done that. I click close now. Now, if I go back to connections, QJack CTL is reflecting that change I made in there. Now, Rosegarden is going to those 2 VMPK outputs. I need those 2 before we do that, I'm just going to go to QSynth. You'll notice here I've got 2 iterations open of it. I've got QSynth 1 and QSynth 2. You could send both of the VMPKs out through QSynth 1, but I've found it gets a bit flaky. It's better to open a new engine. And the way you do that, you just go right click, new engine. And once you've got the new, I'll do it now. Just to give you an example, I'll make a third one that I don't need. Right click a new engine. It'll give it a name which is sensible, QSynth 3. But once you've made it, you've then got to go into Setup, go to Sound Fonts, and you've got to navigate to your sound fonts, which are always in User Share Sounds SF2. That's the one that comes with default, as default with Fluid Synth, and it's rubbish. What you need to do is you go on the internet and you just type in that fluid r3_gm.sf2, and you can download it from, I think, from SourceForge, and then you drop that in SF2. Why? Because that TIM one, which comes as standard, is rubbish. So click open. Now I've done that, and that's, oh yeah, I need to restart that. Okay, so now I've done that, that's it. So I'll get rid of that now though, because I don't need it. Right, so I've got these 2. I'll just restart that as well, just to make absolutely sure it doesn't have a wibble. Okay, right. So, don't lose track, Stephen. Right, so I've got me, let's just bring the one thing up. So I've got me Rosegarden going to 2 VMPK inputs. The VMPK outputs I'm going to send to the 2 iterations of QSynth. Those ones there. So there's the first one. Doesn't really matter which order you put these in, as long as they're going to different ones. Okay, so now I've done that. Now I need to send both of my QSynths out to the system. One was already had already done it. The other one is now as well. So that's that. However, what I now need to do is go to this first track of your flute, right click it there, and it lists the 2 VMPKs that I created in there, if you remember. Now, the one that's selected automatically when I go in, I didn't select it, the one that's automatic, that's the one that I allocated to the flute. I didn't really know which was the flute and which wasn't. I'll just go back in here. I didn't know which of these was the flute and which wasn't. But I find out now it was the VMPK2. It doesn't matter that it's 2 or 1. I could call them pink fairy, blue fairy. It doesn't matter. So VMPK2, and it automatically picks the flute, which is clever. because it knows what this instrument is, and so it's picked the flute. Right, the second one though, if I go to VMPK1 there, which is what this one must be, it doesn't list any instruments. That's because what rosegarden does, and I'm not entirely sure how this works, but what it does is it seems to want to allocate the original instruments from this track to the first one I allocated, which was there, to the melody track. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If I click VMPK1 there, VMPK1 channel 1, I know then that both of these are going through channel 1. Don't ask why, they just have to. Okay, so just to go over that again, go to the first one, you'll see that it's already selected. Just make sure that the instrument that it's selecting matches your instrument, which it does. The second one, whatever's available here, just click the first channel. Okay, that's that. However, what I also need to do is for this second one, and it's always for the second one, you need to go down to the bottom here, instrument parameters, and you need to change it to fixed. Now the reason for that is because the first instrument in the channel in QSynth, in actual fact, is a Yamaha grand piano. It's not a cello. However, by telling rosegarden that the channel is fixed, what it does is it forces the information that this is really a cello to get passed to QSynth, to get passed on to QSynth, and QSynth then just has to accept it, and it doesn't try to default to its own grand piano. I told you this was a bit complicated, but if you just follow what I'm doing in exactly the way that I'm doing it, it will work. Okay, so to reiterate, we've opened up everything. We've made 2 iterations of VMPK here. We've given them unique names. We've then gone to connections, and we've made sure that as well as the inputs, we've sent the outputs to 2 separate iterations, 2 separate engines of FluidSynth. We've then gone to that tab and made sure that those 2 iterations of FluidSynth or QSynth have gone to the system speakers. Okay, when we've done that, we've then come into the actual tracks here. We've made sure that we've selected the correct instrument for that. That one will be automatically, you're not really selecting, you're just checking that it's been auto-selected itself. For the second one, slightly more complicated, you go to the second one that you made and just pick channel 1. But as well as picking channel 1 with that one, and make sure it is that one still selected, you then go down to the bottom and you make sure that within the instrument parameters, you've set it as fixed channel, so that it doesn't try and default back to a grand piano in QSynth. Okay, so now we've done that, there's one final thing I'm going to need to do. You'll notice on here, that says flute, that says acoustic grand piano. I suspect that's the one that is linked to the cello. One of them will be. When I play this, it will still insist on playing the grand piano, and there's one final thing I need to do after I've started it, which is actually pick the cello on the one that is the cello. And I'll know which one it is because it'll be playing that melody line. And when I've done that, I take that back to the start, I can play it then, and then it will play the cello all the way through. And even if I restarted it, looped it, it then keeps it for the rest of the session. So I'm going to start that now. And there's the piano, of course. Right, that's the melody line. And that's a piano. So what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to go to what I know it should be, which is cello. There we go. So that's playing the cello now, and that's playing the flute, which it should be. And now I've done that, it's now going to stick at that for the rest of the session. Now what I also could do here is I haven't got my external keyboards connected, but I could connect my external keyboards here and follow along, each one connected into each one of those VMPKs. So each keyboard operates one of these VMPKs. So if I stop that now, take that back to the start, there's one final thing I want to show you, and that is that you can, I'll just take that back there, shouldn't have done that, silly boy. Oh. Ah. There we go. If I press shift here and then drag there, I'm pressing shift and then using the left mouse button to drag along. What this does is, if I just do that, I'll just do it to there. And if I click, if I now click off that, anywhere off that, anywhere on this tune, and if I click repeat, it'll repeat that bit and just keep going around the loop. Why is that useful? Because you don't just have to select that up. Oh, I've done it again, haven't I? Because you don't just have to select that up. You could select up the entire tune, like that, and then tell that to repeat. And it just means that if you're practicing, you don't have to keep starting the tune and dragging it. It just keeps re-looping. But I'm not going to do that. So, oh, I've done it again. Stupid. There we go. There we go. Right. So I've got that. Got that. One other thing here. If you look here, you can change the beat per minute. So I'm going to zoom that up a bit. Right. I'm now going to play this. I'll play 2 or 3 minutes of it because I think it's a beautiful tune. So here we go. Right, that's enough of that. So, I'll just close that all down now. No, I don't want to save that. Thank you. Close them. Close that. Close that. And finally, close that. Bring me back up. Okay, folks, that's it. Linux. Don't you love it?